Hey there, Jim. Roan here. If you've ever been in a relationship with someone emotionally avoidant, you know how confusing it can feel. One minute, they're close, even affectionate. The next, cold, distant, maybe even silent. It leaves you wondering, do they actually care about me? Or am I just imagining this connection? If that sounds familiar, today's video is for you. Because here's the truth, most people don't understand about avoidance. They can fall in love, but the way they express it looks very different from what you might expect. Their version of love is quieter, it's guarded, and often it's hidden beneath layers of emotional self-protection. So if you've been left second-guessing whether your avoidant partner is truly invested, don't worry. In this video, I'm breaking down 5 subtle but powerful signs that reveal when an avoidant is actually in love with you, even if they haven't said it out loud. We're going to decode their emotional language and help you spot the signals that are easy to miss, but deeply meaningful. You'll learn how to tell the difference between emotional detachment and emotional safety, what it really means when they start letting their guard down, and why space. Yes, space can be a sign that they're trying to come closer, not pull away. This isn't about guessing games or reading between the lines. It's about clarity, because once you understand the psychology behind avoidant behavior, everything starts to make more sense, and you stop blaming yourself for their distance. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Every week, I share insights to help you navigate emotionally complex relationships with more clarity, self-worth, and grounded love. Let's get into it and talk about what love looks like through an avoidant's eyes. Let's start with one of the clearest yet often overlooked signs that an avoidant loves you. They let you see their core wound. Avoidantly attached individuals often build their lives around emotional distance. They've learned, usually early in life, that vulnerability isn't safe. Maybe they grew up in homes where their emotions were dismissed or ignored, or they had to become emotionally self-sufficient way too soon. As a result, they protect themselves by staying guarded. They avoid intimacy, not because they don't want connection, but because connection feels like a risk to their sense of control and identity. So, when an avoidant begins to open up even just a little about something painful or deeply personal, that's not small. That's huge. If they let you into the inner world, they usually keep locked away, sharing something about their past, admitting a fear they carry, or expressing doubt about themselves. It's a clear sign that they trust you on a level they don't often allow themselves to go. See, their core wound is usually centered around the fear of engulfment, of losing themselves in closeness. So, when they start to let you in on what shaped them emotionally, it's a sign that they're making space for connection, even if it's awkward or inconsistent. This doesn't mean they'll suddenly become emotionally fluent overnight. It might come in fragments, an unexpected comment, a subtle reference to a painful memory, or even a quiet moment where they let you see their uncertainty. What matters is that they're trying. Let's say you're dating someone avoidant and they casually mention how as a kid they learned not to ask for help because it always led to disappointment. That might not seem like a big deal, but for them, that kind of disclosure is deeply vulnerable. They may not even realize they're revealing something tender, but the fact that they're sharing it with you and not running afterward is a signal that your presence feels emotionally safe. You might also notice them responding differently when you reflect that vulnerability back to them gently. For example, if you say, "It sounds like you had to be strong for yourself for a long time," and they don't immediately shut down or to deflect, if they actually take that in, they're showing you that your emotional attunement matters. That's a form of emotional connection, even if it doesn't look like the affection you're used to. It's important not to push them to reveal more than they're ready for. The moment you try to force depth, their defense system activates. But when they volunteer pieces of their emotional history, it means they're letting the wall down, even if it's only brick by brick. So if your avoidant partner lets you understand even a glimpse of their emotional blueprint, take note. That's not just a moment they're showing you something sacred. It means you matter. It means they're letting love peek through the fear. And in the avoidant world, that is no small thing. It's a quiet, powerful sign that love is there, growing behind the scenes. One of the biggest indicators that an avoidant partner is truly falling for you is this: they stop retreating when the relationship hits emotional milestones. Now, if you've ever been with someone who leans dismissively avoidant, you know how triggering commitment-related moments can be. We're talking about the kinds of steps that make most people feel closer, becoming exclusive, saying, "I love you," planning trips together, talking about living arrangements, or even casually mentioning the future. These are moments that typically bring partners together, but for avoidance, they often trigger a wave of internal panic. Why? Because emotional milestones signal closeness, and closeness feels risky. For someone who's learned to equate intimacy with losing themselves, or worse, getting hurt, these moments can feel like pressure, even if they're approached gently. That's why many avoidants start to distance themselves right when things start to feel serious. They pull back, become emotionally vague, or start focusing on logistical reasons not to move forward. This isn't about logic, it's about fear. But here's what's important: when those milestones stop triggering withdrawal, that's a big deal. It means your partner is slowly building the capacity to stay emotionally present. It means that instead of viewing those relationship steps as threats, they're beginning to experience them as safe, or at least manageable. Let's say, for example, you bring up the idea of planning a weekend getaway. In the past, your avoidant partner might have gone quiet, changed the subject, or brushed it off. But now, they lean in. They don't just agree, they help you plan. Or maybe you bring up wanting clarity on the future. Instead of deflecting with a joke or saying, "Let's not rush things," they actually engage. They may not have a perfect answer, but they're in the conversation, and that's what matters. This kind of shift isn't always dramatic. In fact, it's usually subtle. It might look like them staying after a serious talk instead of walking out, or not needing as much time to themselves after a big moment. You'll feel it in the absence of tension. You'll notice that the usual dance of closeness, then distance, has softened. There's less emotional whiplash, more consistency. That's because avoidance, when they begin to feel emotionally safe, slowly rewire how they respond to intimacy. Love starts to feel less like a trap and more like a choice. And they begin making that choice with you one milestone at a time. So if your avoidant partner has stopped running every time things move forward, that's not just progress. That's emotional investment in real time. It means they're not just staying, they're stretching. And in the world of avoidance, that's a powerful sign that love is not only present, but growing. You're not just someone they care about. You're becoming someone they're learning to stay with, even through their own fear. The third sign that an avoidant truly loves you is what the author calls the heart of the sandwich, the moment they begin to open up emotionally. This is often the hardest and most telling shift for someone with a dismissive, avoidant attachment style. Because for them, vulnerability isn't just uncomfortable, it can feel dangerous. So, when they start to lower the emotional drawbridge, even in small ways, it means something real is happening beneath the surface. Most avoidants are experts at staying surface level. They'll talk about work interests, logistics, but when it comes to sharing feelings, fears, or anything that makes them feel exposed, they shut down or deflect. It's not that they don't have emotions. In fact, they often feel deeply. They've just never been taught that it's safe or even acceptable to express them. Many grew up in environments where feelings were dismissed, judged, or met with chaos, so they learned to keep everything inside. That's why, when they begin to share emotionally with you, it's a big deal. This might come in the form of opening up about something painful in their past, like a difficult family dynamic, a loss, or a relationship that shaped them. It might be them naming a fear they usually avoid, like not feeling good enough, or not knowing how to be a good partner. Or it might be them simply saying, "I've never told anyone this before." That sentence, when it comes from an avoidant, is loaded with meaning. It means they are letting you into a part of themselves they usually protect at all costs. You may notice that this emotional sharing doesn't always come out smoothly. Avoidants might stumble through it. They might make a joke, look away, or downplay what they're saying, even as they say it. That's okay. What matters is that it's happening at all. Because emotional openness is one of the clearest ways love starts to take root in an avoidant partner. It means they trust you enough to risk being seen not just for who they appear to be, but for who they really are underneath. And here's something else to know: if they open up and you respond with warmth, non-judgment, and emotional presence, it reinforces their sense that closeness is safe. That creates a feedback loop that encourages more sharing, more softness, and more connection over time. So if your avoidant partner starts letting their guard down emotionally, pay attention. That's not just a rare moment. That's love trying to breathe through the fear. It's them saying in their own way, "You're different. I feel safe with you. I'm letting you in even though it scares me." And that's the core of transformation in avoidant love. It's the beginning of something real, something deeper, something worth noticing and gently holding. Because once an avoidant starts to share their inner world, it means you've reached a place very few people ever do. Another powerful sign that an avoidant loves you, maybe more than they're able to say, is when they pull away but come back on their own after you give them space. This moment right here is a major turning point in how avoidant love operates. Because avoidants aren't strangers to creating distance. In fact, it's often their default response when the relationship starts to feel too emotionally charged or intimate. But what makes all the difference is what happens next and whether they choose to return on their own. See, avoidants pull away not because they don't care, but because closeness triggers their nervous system. Emotional intimacy for them can feel like pressure even when it's not intended that way. It brings up fears of losing control, of being engulfed, or of having to meet emotional expectations they aren't sure they can handle. So they retreat. It's not always personal, it's protective. But for the person on the other side of it, it can feel deeply painful and confusing. This is where your response matters. Most people, especially those with anxious or secure attachment, instinctively want to chase, fix, or close the gap. They want to reassure, re-engage, or ask for clarity, and that's understandable. But with avoidance, chasing usually backfires. It reinforces the belief that closeness equals overwhelm. That's why one of the most secure and effective things you can do is this: honor the space they're asking for. Not out of punishment, but out of self-respect. And when you do that, when you give them the space they need without punishing them, blaming yourself, or demanding instant answers, what happens next tells you everything. If they return on their own and do so with more emotional openness, that is a sign of love growing, because now the connection feels less like a trap and more like a choice. You're seeing them learn that space doesn't mean disconnection. You're showing them that they don't have to run forever, that love doesn't have to smother, it can breathe. Sometimes they come back with a text that feels casual. Other times they return with a bit more warmth, a little more clarity. They may not launch into a deep emotional conversation right away. That's okay. What matters is that they come back with intention, not just habit. That return says, "I missed you. I'm thinking about this. I care." It means your absence mattered. If they start showing up after distance with a bit more vulnerability, maybe they acknowledge how they shut down or admit they've been overwhelmed. That's gold. That's growth. That's them trying. So if you've given space and they've returned, not just physically, but emotionally, that's a big deal. That's not just a habit, it's a choice rooted in growing emotional safety. It means they're starting to learn that closeness doesn't mean losing themselves. It might just mean they're finding themselves with you. And that in the avoidant love language is one of the clearest signs they truly care. The fifth sign that an avoidant truly loves you, and perhaps one of the most underrated, is when they continue to be drawn to your emotional depth. This may sound simple, but it's actually a big deal. Avoidants tend to disconnect from relationships when things become too predictable, too emotionally demanding, or when they feel like the dynamic has become stagnant. It's not necessarily because they crave constant novelty, but because once they feel like they've figured you out, their emotional defense system kicks in. They may assume that the connection is losing its spark, or worse, that it's heading toward the kind of emotional vulnerability they've worked hard to avoid. But here's the twist. When you're someone with layers, with emotional nuance, with a life that expands beyond the relationship, they stay engaged. They may not always say it, but they feel it. Your curiosity, your emotional intelligence, your self-reflection, your ability to grow and surprise them, it keeps them emotionally present. It keeps the dynamic alive. And in avoidant psychology, that's a huge deal. This doesn't mean you have to perform or hide parts of yourself. It means you bring your full, evolving self to the relationship. You aren't overly available. You don't center your entire identity around them. You stay curious, not just about them, but about your own life, your passions, your healing, your sense of purpose. That depth gives the avoidant something they rarely encounter: safe intrigue. A kind of relational mystery that doesn't threaten them, it draws them in. They may not say, "I love how deep you are emotionally," but you'll notice it in how they stay connected, in how they return after time apart, in how they show small gestures of care. Avoidants don't fall for surface-level connection. They stay when the relationship feels emotionally rich without being emotionally overwhelming. And when you bring that richness in a grounded, secure way, it's disarming. They may even feel safe for the first time, not because you force them to be different, but because your presence invites them to be more of themselves without pressure. One of the ways this shows up is when they ask more questions about you. They begin to notice subtleties. They linger longer in conversations. They circle back to something you said days ago. These may seem like small signs, but they're powerful, because for someone who usually guards their attention, giving it to you repeatedly means you're not just familiar, you're meaningful. Avoidants don't typically chase intensity. They're more likely to run from it. But if you're someone who brings depth without chaos, emotional insight without drama, and warmth without suffocation, they'll find it harder to detach from you, because love for them has to feel safe and alive. And your inner depth, your evolving self, is what makes them feel both. So if your avoidant partner keeps coming back, keeps asking questions, keeps being drawn to your inner world, that's not just interest, that's connection, that's love that's slowly being felt on their terms in their time, but very, very real. Understanding love from an avoidant partner can feel like reading between the lines of a language you were never taught. They may not say, "I love you" in the ways you expect. They may not always meet your vulnerability with matching openness, but that doesn't mean love isn't there. It just means their love speaks in quieter tones, tones shaped by self-protection, past wounds, and a deep-rooted fear of losing themselves in connection. In this video, we explored 5 powerful signs that an avoidant partner may truly love you, even if their actions don't always look traditional. We talked about how they let you into their core wound, how they stop running from emotional milestones, how they begin to open up, even in small, subtle ways. We looked at how they return when given space, and how your emotional depth can quietly pull them closer over time. Each of these moments is meaningful not because they're dramatic, but because, for an avoidant, they're brave. Real love with an avoidant doesn't grow through pressure. It grows through emotional safety, trust, and your ability to stay grounded in yourself. That means not overextending, not chasing, and not trying to decode every silent moment. It means being patient, yes, but also being anchored in your own self-worth, so their emotional limitations don't become a reason to question your value. So if you're seeing these signs, take heart. Something real might be blooming slowly, quietly, but meaningfully. And if not, you still deserve a love that feels mutual, responsive, and safe. Thank you so much for watching. If this video brought you clarity or comfort, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. Every week, I share insights to help you navigate love healing and boundaries with emotional maturity and grounded confidence. And now, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below. Have you seen any of these signs in your relationship with an avoidant partner? Which one resonated with you most? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to feel a little less alone today. Until next time, stay kind, stay steady, and remember, real love grows where emotional safety lives.